Glad to be here.
Okay, it's nearing the end. It's just me for the last tech talk, and then Josh for the closing session, and I will try to uh, not dwell too long on each slide. But yeah, I mean, this is a question for all of us, regardless of whether we're laypersons or scholars. If we're citizens of a country which has governance by some elected leaders, there's always this question of who's going to defend democracy and decency. I think that's the greatest challenge that we are facing in the current. Uh, um, I think we can reasonably call it a constitutional crisis at this point. The current administration has created a constitutional crisis because that administration does no longer respect the rule of law. And then that, of course, raises the question of how do we maintain standards for maintaining standards? Because if you don't respect the rule of law and things like as what's written in the Constitution, I mean, what do we even consider the definition of a standard? So you get caught in rhetorical loops there. Yeah, absolutely. We get caught in circular definition loops. What's a standard? But let me nevertheless plow through what I've got here. And I would like to argue that this is my most important message and frankly, the most important slide in this tech talk. I would just like to emphasize this mantra, which I've been repeating now for quite some time. It's kind of like a sequence of you need this to get that, you need this to get that. But the basic message here is that one way of saying this is that everything is connected to everything. And if we want to be healthy, whether in our own brain function or our own behavior as an individual or family or community, we have to understand that it's just no longer possible to have brain health unless we go through this sequence. So we can't have community health without public health and safety. Can't have that without social and societal health. For that, we need healthy, open societies, and that means we need democracy, not autocracy. And so the conclusion here is that if we want brain health, we need democratic health. So this is the most important message I have to share today, and this is the single most important slide in my presentation for this tech talk. Having shared that with you, I'm just going to move quickly through the rest of my presentation. Again, incredibly necessary and important call for return to sanity. For a return to sanity, we need civility, courtesy, tolerance, and respect. We need to get back to not just people talking to people, but oh, heaven forbid the thought. What about actual politicians negotiating with other politicians? So, just as scholars should practice citational justice and refrain from ghosting each other with willful disregard, so should politicians practice representational justice and refrain from ghosting other politicians with willful disregard. It's really, really challenging these days to prohibit personal insults, lies, and attacks because it's nonstop on a daily basis in all the news. That's primarily because of the behavior of the liar in chief. Nevertheless, academicians, politicians, we all should, even as ordinary laypersons and citizens, we all should bear a duty and responsibility to serve as role models for our communities. But this is especially important for political leaders who are also supposed to be safety officers if they really do want to serve as leaders in those communities. And This is a quote from Dwight Eisenhower. You just can't have leadership without integrity. It's just not possible. The famous metaphor about the fish rotting or stinking first from the head. Lots of different sources. Uh, Many of them actually refer to some origin in the Middle East. Some mention Turkey, other countries. The Wiktionary attributes Erasmus. It's probably been around a long, long time. But Leadership requires integrity. Those who fail to maintain truth and integrity fail as leaders. Why? Because sooner or later, they either betray, corrupt, or lose their followers. Okay, so we've been working on this problem for a long time now, and as with anything and everything in the world, uh, any anything can be either used for good or for bad, and that's true of our acronyms. It's certainly true of the plagiarism war that we've dealt with the acronym FAIR. Is certainly true for any new acronym we start using. So this is an example here of triple D in a good way, defending democracy and decency. But it can also be a phrase for a bad thing, because I certainly consider divomatic denialism and duplicity a bad thing. It's basically the authoritarian's playbook for how to exploit people, graft from them, enrich the authoritarian with a person in power who already has most of the power and money anyway. Okay, I wrote about this already 3 years ago when I described what I called a global pandemic of Darwomania, that it was a public health hazard. And the original definition of Darwomania was combined by putting together the acronym DARVO, which was developed by Jennifer Fried, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. And then the word well known to the public, laypersons, anybody, everybody. Very few people don't know the word mania. And I just put them together. So this is a particular syndrome with characteristic pattern of behaviors, and I called it Darwomania. And the very sad statement is that now this situation has dramatically worsened since 2022, and it affects many spheres of life, not just politics, but also academics. And it's threatening to destroy decency in both politics and academics. Okay, so it shows up in politics. I'm sure many would agree with me in this statement that democracy is now broken. Its predominant behavior characteristic is Darwomanic misconduct. That's what characterized all those who basically project and blame victims for the perpetrator's crimes. It's once again the essence of DARVO: deny, attack, reverse, victim, offender. But there are a number of ideas. These are not necessarily original with me in any way. There are plenty of people who have talked about how to save and salvage the Department of Justice. Certainly, it's got to be moved from the control of the executive branch, because the current administration has demonstrated how quickly and horrifically it can be corrupted. Maybe that has a better chance of surviving without corruption if it's moved to the judicial branch or a coalition of independent inspectors general. There are several other recommendations here. Some of these are clearly in practice by many other democracies around the world. There are plenty of democracies around the world that aren't experiencing the kind of problem we have in America right now, because they don't play endless games over who can or cannot vote. If you're a citizen, you have a duty to vote, just like you have a duty to pay your taxes. And those of us who are familiar with Australia know that Australia is a wonderful example of this citizenry duty and responsibility. Okay, but it's unfortunately the same thing in academics nowadays, with the prevalence of fraud, fabrication, plagiarism, misconduct. And I now lump them together with what I'm now calling Darwomanic misconduct in academics. And the prototype example of this is our own work at Brain Health Alliance, because what has happened here is the continuing um, the continuing uh, propagation of the plagiarism and the ghosting of our work, where we have been silenced and censored and discriminated against for so long, that most recently at the Hicks conference, there was an attempt to actually remove me from a session because I dared to defend the work that I had published 2 decades ago. So this has been now documented extensively in a series of reports that have main title "Unfairness by the Fair." Whoops, sorry. Main title "Unfairness by the Fair Principles Promoters." There are already 3 in that series. One emphasizing the absence of accountability for integrity. One emphasizing the misconduct of the complainant investigators who actually aid and abet the plagiarists. And the third, emphasizing the manner in which the historical record of scientific reports is getting falsified by these people. So, one way of really highlighting the absurdity of what the FAIR Principles promoters have done is that they manifest a classic diagnostic characteristic of behavior for a whole range um, I'll just call them syndromes, is the effort to have it both ways at the same time. Sometimes it's called playing both sides. Sometimes it's called speaking out of both sides of your mouth at the same time. But all of these individuals who promote the FAIR principles cannot do that while at the same time claiming that they're actually promoting fairness when they have literally plagiarized all this work and refused to cite the original contributors, the original authors, and they continue to engage in willful disregard of the publishing ethics and maintain their position of ghosting us and our work at Brain Health Alliance. So that gets me to what is so sorely missing in today's political theory with Darwomanic politicians and political theory. It's the same in academics. It's political theater, Darwomanic misconduct in academics. What happened? What happened to recognition for the importance of character, morals, ethics, integrity, and character? Now, this is a very famous quote from Albert Einstein. Many people say that it's the intellect which makes a great scientist. They are wrong. It is character. I am more than overwhelmed in my commitment to support this statement by Albert Einstein. One of the other points here is that the so-called appeals for integrity are age-old. They go back decades. The problem is that many of the organizations that publicly promote ethics fail to enforce violations of those ethics. So there's no enforcement. And, it's always good to hang on to some humor in comedy. And I think the best one to do this is Tom Lehrer. And he has a wonderful, wonderful video about plagiarism. So I encourage you to have a look at it. Moving along here, another thing that we like to do in the BHAVI program, we have fun with alliterations. So here's a P alliteration, plague of prevalent plagiarism by protected professors. How are we ever going to do this? It will require courage by all of us who actually do believe in promoting moral, ethical teaching, education, and research with true scholarship. But the problem is that, frankly, many in academia are now silent. They offer excuses like, well, I don't want to be the science police. Those who are actually charged with the authority to serve as integrity officers at agencies or offices that are supposed to defend integrity they actually explicitly do the exact opposite. So those integrity offices and officers, uh, uh, there are four major patterns here, and I've given them the names: the silent treatment, pass the buck treatment, sham investigation, and kangaroo court investigation. I'm happy to offer more details on the difference between those four if they're not obvious. So once again here, what is the meaning of any professional code of ethics and conduct if it is never enforced? And so people just ignore it. They treat it with willful disregard because they know there's no accountability. There's a complete absence of accountability. All right. Well, so that's why we have documented now with so many reports just on the general concepts of truth in science, integrity in research. We have documented this so exhaustively now that this was plagiarism, plain and simple. And to get back to Adam's point about personal contact, I spoke in person to these plagiarists originally in 2009 at W3C conference on the campus of MIT. And the person that I hold mostly responsible is Michel Dumontier, and he literally back then told me to my face that he would never cite the work of anybody that he didn't want to cite, and he didn't have to search the literature, and he could do whatever he wanted. So basically a brazen, defiant rejection of the ethics of publishing that used to require uh, studying, learning, searching, citing the prior art, the past record of historical scientific literature, standing on the shoulders of giants, giving credit where credit is due. Michel Dumontier um, followed a few years later, putting together the cabal of close to 6 people on the original Fair Principles paper, and basically used that as another mechanism for hiding his plagiarism. This has been propagated and continued by others who presumably should have fulfilled their positions of leadership with responsibility and accountability, but that's also been rejected by people like Mark Musin at Stanford, who has aided and abetted and promoted a literal plagiarism cartel, ghosting other authors. I have directly attempted repeatedly to reach out to Mark Musin, and he has ghosted me. So all of this has been detailed at length in one of the Unfairness of Fair Principles Promoters papers, which was the one presented a few months ago, actually the beginning of the year in Hawaii at the Higgs conference. This is a especially concerning one because it's the actual complaint investigators who aid and abet plagiarists. And it tells the story of how they go about doing that. So, what's the conclusion here? Archaic laws no longer serve the planet's people or citizens of any country. We live in an era of rapidly spreading global pandemic. There is no bacteria or virus or any infectious disease that has awareness of geographic jurisdictions, boundaries for laws, government borders. No, a virus or bacteria will spread without any understanding of geographic jurisdictions. It's the same kind of problem with information wars. We now have rampant Darwomania funded and fueled by oligarchs. There is no politician or election campaign that respects geographic jurisdictions or government borders anymore. A perfect example is Elon Musk spending huge amounts of money to fund a big protest march that was what some people consider extreme right in England. It's the same problem now with academic publishers. They benefit from instantaneous worldwide publishing. So they publish a paper and it's instantaneously available around the world, literally around the world. But there's never any responsibility and accountability for addressing complaints about Darwinic misconduct, as experienced by us. Springer Nature, journal Nature Scientific Data, has literally repeatedly refused any and all of our requests to give at least some response to our concerns. But no, they've silenced it, censored it, and suppressed it. So how do we get around the for-profit publishers like Springer Nature? Well, we need coalitions of nonprofit humanitarian organizations, those who are more concerned about the good of the people and the good of life on planet Earth. And maybe we can, as a coalition of nonprofits and humanitarian organizations, maybe we can find a way to better incentivize better respect with some manner of enforcement of codes of conduct, because the current practice right now is willful disregard. These people just reject truth and science and integrity research with willful disregard. So here's my concluding slide, and it's once again this question, how to maintain standards for maintaining standards. This behavior that knowingly, consciously uses the malevolent strategy and tactics of what they know to be Darwinic misconduct. This is intentional. This is purposeful. And it is disturbingly similar in both politics and academics. Okay? So it's very easy to draw analogies and parallels between what we've seen going on in politics and the behavior of what we're seeing going on in academics. Unfortunately, it's not good for anybody except those who may, in a corrupt manner, enrich themselves with more power and money. But that's a select few. I mean, we have some politicians who talk about the top 0.1% of 1%, and the rest of the 99% of the rest of us, we suffer at the expense of the oligarch. This Darwinic misconduct destroys democracy and decency. It destroys truth and science and integrity in research. And so my question here is, how bad will it get before things start to get better again? And if we look at them as a similar analogous behavior in both of these worlds of politics and academics, then we can also ask the question, where must it improve first? In order to improve the situation in academics, does it have to get better in politics? Or is it the other way around? Or maybe this question is moot. And we just have to address the problem everywhere. And therefore, we should declare that Darwinic misconduct anywhere, in any domain, must be prohibited. If and when it occurs, it should be reported. And certainly research published by Darwinic misconduct should be retracted. So let me conclude there. I do recommend our Hitchhiker's Guide to Scholarly Research Integrity. I think that was a very important paper. And this was another one, Truth and Science paper. Meanwhile, this is just one of the unfairness by fair principle promoters. There are a total of 3 in that series now. So with that, let me just close this tech talk, and we will